So right now we are on page 100. Now up until now, the whole first semester was just kind of introducing us to things about the entire United States. Geography, government, culture, all of that kind of thing. Well, now we are into the actual regions. Remember we talked about those 5 regions of the United States. Who remembers what they are? You can tell me one at a time. Carla, what's one of those regions of the United States that our textbook breaks them up into?
One of them is the Northeast.
The Northeast. Zadie, what's another?
The Midwest.
The Midwest. Cullen, what's another?
Southeast.
The Southeast. Smith, what's another?
The West.
The West. And then there's one more. Kingston. Not the Midwest. Somebody already said that. Mason.
South.
Somebody already said the Southeast. Cullen?
It's
So we have the Northeast, the Southeast, the Midwest, the West, and the...
the West-East.
Not West-East, that's not a thing. Kingston? The Southwest. So, do you have work stuff? Is it chapstick? Okay. So the first region we're going to talk about is the Northeast. So on page 100 and 101, we have a map of the Northeast. How many states are there in the Northeast? This is where your states and abbreviations really comes in handy. How many states are in the Northeast? Victoria? Not 9. Smith?
11.
Not 11. Find the state names. Kingston. We're on page 100. Zadie?
6.
Not 6. Mason? Okay, now you guys are just guessing. Count them. Find the state names. You took your states and abbreviations, so you know which of these are their names and which of them are just not their names. Zari?
There are 9.
There are not 9. You're missing one. Cullen?
There's 10.
There's 10. Everybody find them. We're starting at the bottom. On the bottom right. First we have Delaware. Find Delaware. Put your finger on it. Is Delaware a New England state or a Middle Atlantic state? Mason. Middle Atlantic state. How do you know that, Mason? There's a key. And the Middle Atlantic states are what color? Like a bright pink, like a bubblegum pink. New England states are what we would call maybe a salmon pink. Okay, let's go north from there. Now we have New Jersey. Put your finger on New Jersey. Is New Jersey a Middle Atlantic state or New England state? Cullen?
Middle Atlantic state.
Middle Atlantic state. Next we have Pennsylvania. Find Pennsylvania. Which group is Pennsylvania part of? Zadie?
The Middle Atlantic.
The Middle Atlantic. Then we have New York. Which group is New York a part of? Smith?
Middle Atlantic.
Middle Atlantic. Then we have Connecticut. Which group is Connecticut a part of? Make sure you're finding and pointing to these states. Victoria, which group is Connecticut a part of? New England states. Then we have Rhode Island. Which group is that a part of? Zari.
New England state.
New England states. Then we have Massachusetts. Carla, what group is that a part of?
New England state.
New England states. Then we have New Hampshire. Which group is that a part of? Zadie.
New England.
New England. Then we have Vermont. Which group is that a part of? Cullen.
New England.
New England. And then last but not least, we have Maine. Which group is Maine a part of? Ethan.
New England.
New England states. Michaela, I'm sorry you don't have this because I forgot we always go over this first when we start a lesson. But it'll be okay. So we have 10 states in the New England region. Or I'm sorry, the northeastern region. Now, I want to find the capital cities of each of these states. What do I look for to find the capital city? Kingston. A star, because we see in our key, a star indicates a what, Kingston? A state capital. What's the difference? What do the circles, the dots show? Carla.
The dot shows the major city.
The dots show a major city. So it's a big city, but it's not the capital. Okay. What's the capital of Pennsylvania? What's the capital of Pennsylvania? Zadie?
Harrisburg.
Harrisburg. What's the capital of Maine? Victoria. Augusta. What's the capital of Connecticut? Cullen.
Hartford.
Hartford. What's the capital of New York? Zari.
New York is Trenton.
Not Trenton. That's in New Jersey. What about New York?
Albany.
Albany. What about Vermont? Carla, what's the capital of Vermont?
Montpelier.
Montpelier. What about Delaware? Cullen.
Denver.
Not Denver. There's no N. So it would be, look at where that E is. What does it do to that O?
Denver.
There's no N. And what is that E? We have O, consonant E. So what happens to that O?
It makes it O sound.
Okay, so what would that be?
Dover.
Dover. What about New Hampshire? Mason. Concord. What about Rhode Island? Ethan? Providence. What about New Jersey? Smith.
Trenton.
Trenton. And then if we look at Massachusetts, we can figure out what the capital city is because look at all the cities that are listed. We have Springfield, Worcester, Lowell, and Boston, and then Cape Cod. Well, not Cape Cod. Cape Cod is just a place. But notice, what did we have next to Springfield, Worcester, and Lowell? What do we have next to those places? Victoria. What is next to those three city names? Mason, can you help her out?
Water.
Not water. Look at what's next to those three names. Springfield doesn't have water near it. Neither does Worcester. What do we have right next to them? Zari.
Boston.
Springfield, Worcester, and Lowell. What do we have right next to those names? Smith.
A circle.
A circle. Dots. Circles or dots mean what, Smith?
It means they are major cities.
It means they're major cities. Now, do you think this map would just leave off the capital of Massachusetts? Colin?
No.
No. So what do you think that means is the capital city? Would it be Springfield, Worcester, or Lowell?
No.
No. So which one do you think it is?
Boston.
Boston. Why do you think it's Boston? I don't see a star next to it. Cullen?
Because there's a golden circle next to it, and it has a picture, and it looks like it's the capital because it shows the big city.
Okay. But let's look at New York. You have numbers on yours, or is that just in my book? I think that's just in my book. But let's look at New York. Is New York City the capital of New York? Is White River the capital of Vermont? So are they only showing capital cities in these bubbles? So what is most likely the reason that we know Boston is the capital? Not necessarily because of the picture, but you're on the right track. You had part of it right, but it's not just because it's a picture. Kingston? The gold circle is probably just covering the star. Because they're not just going to skip one capital city. I mean, look at Rhode Island. They only list one city. But which city did they make sure to list? Delaware's the same way. Oh, no, Delaware's not the same way. Sorry, there is one up north. For Rhode Island, which city did they make sure to list? Mason? The capital. So would they just skip it for Massachusetts? No. So we can just use process of elimination. That means you eliminate or get rid of all the ones you know are not the right answer and use whatever's left. If Springfield, Worcester, and Lowell are not the capitals, they're just major cities, that means, well, what's left? Boston doesn't have a circle or a star. Well, we can just assume, Victoria, you're tuning out. We can just assume that that little yellow circle is covering up the star. Yes?
Also, I'm going to say about Springfield.
Okay.
Have you ever seen The Simpsons?
Yes, but it's not the same place. Springfield and The Simpsons is not a real place.
I know, but like,
And there's Springfields in pretty much every single state in the country. There's a Springfield, Tennessee. There's a Springfield, Missouri. Springfield, Illinois. Springfield, Massachusetts. There's probably a Springfield in every single state in the United States. Okay. Now let's look at this map. Are there any national parks in the Northeast? Look closely. How do we find national parks? What do we look for? Carla?
We look for a kind of dark green.
We look for the dark green, not the light green. So, are there any national parks in the Northeast? Mason,
No.
are you sure? Look all over for dark green. Zari?
I see some in New Hampshire.
Do you see dark green? Or do you see light green? We're looking for dark green. I don't see any dark green in New Hampshire, but I do see some light green. We'll talk about that in a minute. Zadie, do you see any national parks?
Yes.
Where is the national park? What state?
In Maine.
In Maine. So everybody find Maine? Put your finger on the dark green. Which national park is in Maine?
Acada National Park.
Acadia National Park. Close. Acadia National Park is in Maine. I don't see any others, but I do see this light green. What does the light green mean? What does the light green that kind of looks like it's textured? Victoria.
It means National Forest.
National forests. Those are different from national parks. It's a forest that the government takes care of. Do we see any national forests? We see a few. Colin, name one.
I don't know how to say it. It's in Pennsylvania.
Try it. Think about what G and H sound like when they're together. Like in ghost. Does H make a different sound when it's right after G? No. Allegheny
National Forest.
Allegheny National Forest. And then what's another national forest that you see? Mason.
There's one in Vermont.
In Vermont, what do you think it's called?
The Green Mountain.
Green Mountain National Forest, maybe. I don't actually know. I don't know why they don't have the official name. Maybe because it is Green Mountain National Forest. Anything else? Smith.
The White Mountains in New Hampshire.
White Mountain National Forest, I think. That's what I would assume. Very good. Okay, what do those triangles mean? I see triangles every once in a while. What do those mean? Carla.
The green triangles mean that there is a mountain peak.
Good, a mountain peak. So let's see, if we look at, let's see. I really only see one. What mountain peak do we see? We see different mountain ranges, but we really only see one mountain peak. What mountain peak do we see? Carla.
We see Mount Washington.
Mount. MT is an abbreviation for Mount. So we would say that Mount.
Mount Washington.
Good. Where is Mount Washington? In where?
In New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Very good. How tall is Mount Washington? Victoria. 6,288 feet. What mountain chain that also runs through Tennessee is Mount Washington a part of? What mountain chain that also runs through Tennessee is Mount Washington a part of? Mason? Not the Smoky Mountains. The Smoky Mountains are a part of this mountain chain, but they're just a smaller part. But there's one long mountain chain that has different ranges in it. Zadie?
The Rocky Mountains.
Not the Rocky Mountains. Those are on the other side of the country. It's on this map. We see it. I will give you a hint. It's not White Mountains. Smith.
The Appalachian Mountains.
The Appalachian Mountains. Does everybody see how the Appalachian Mountains run through the Northeast? Those also run through Tennessee. They start in like Georgia, like northern Georgia. And then they run all the way up to where, all the way up through Canada, really. Okay, so now let's go ahead and turn to page 110. Page 110. So, Michaela, later on if you, well, never mind, don't worry about it. Okay, is everybody on page 110? Okay, be ready to read. In, let's see, Lena, in social studies and science, we find the definitions as we go. So reading, I'll define things first, but as we read social studies and science, we'll find them, and whoever's reading will get to tell me what the word is. Okay, so everybody, starting with page 110. Ethan, please read loud and slow. Ethan. And loud and slow. Use your finger to follow along, even if it's not your turn. That shows that you are not zoning out. You're still paying attention. Geography. A little louder.
You hang on tight to the railing as your boat rises and falls over falls, she falls back. As you near land, you watch the white cliffs
Lining.
the shore. Behind them, you see the forest of tall green trees covering the distant hills. This is the last day of your vacation in Maine. You can hardly wait until next year, when you can sail again along the northeast coast.
Very good. So when we think of the beach, what do we think of? Victoria.
We think of sunny.
Okay.
And it's sandy everywhere.
It's sandy.
Sand on your feet a lot and
Okay.
your hands. And there's a big body of water which we call an ocean with sea life in it.
Okay.
And it's really hot.
Okay.
And there's some shade
Okay.
where the umbrellas are. And toys.
Okay. So very descriptive. So everybody, close your eyes and imagine the beach as you know it. It's very flat, right? There's like a slight slope to the ground. The beach is pretty wide. It's all sand. And then behind the beach is some like kind of grassy small hills, depending on if you've been to the Atlantic coast or the Gulf Coast. If you've been to the Gulf Coast, it's just some grassy, like very small hills, and there's like a boardwalk over it because you're not allowed to walk on them. If you've been to the Atlantic coast in Florida, there are like these big hills that you have to have a boardwalk over because otherwise you'd be like climbing these little hills. Do any of you picture like cliffs and rocks? No. But up north in Maine, along the coast of Maine, that's what the beach looks like. They don't have beaches like we do. They may have a couple, but mostly in Maine, the beach runs right up to the mountains. What mountains do you think that is? Think of the shape of mountains that we know about that somebody, I think Smith told us earlier. Where do they end? Lena, what mountains? What? The Appalachian Mountains. They run up and then they kind of end at the coast of Canada. So have you ever, none of you I'm sure imagined a mountain and then the ocean. But that's what the beach in Maine looks like. Because you've got those Appalachian Mountains. Remember when we learned in our very first chapter of social studies about the coastal plain? And we learned that down south, it's real wide. It's like hundreds of miles from the ocean to the mountains. But we also learned that as you go farther north, the coast and the mountains get closer and closer. So that coastal plain gets smaller and smaller. Like down in the south, it's from the Appalachian Mountains to the ocean, which is pretty far. Like imagine a map of the United States. And think of where, I would show you over here, but then I can't bring them. Down at the bottom, the Appalachian Mountains kind of end around like Tennessee, Alabama, South Carolina. Not Alabama, I'm sorry, Georgia. So look how wide. It's like the entire width of the state of South Carolina, which is pretty big. But then the Appalachian Mountains are curved, or I'm sorry, diagonal. So they go up, and as you get, this is a terrible drawing of the coast of the United States. And here's the Appalachian Mountains. Here's Florida. The Appalachian Mountains kind of go diagonal. So when you get up here to Maine and southern Canada, the mountains are like right there. So that's what the geography of the Northeast looks like. That's what the Northeast looks like, those New England states. Now, yes, like the other ones do have more of a regular beach. Like New Jersey has more of a regular beach. I think Massachusetts has more of a regular beach. But as you go more north, like up to Maine and Canada, it becomes much more rocky. And we can see here there are cliffs right up against the ocean. Okay, let's go on to page 111. Thank you, Ethan. Please read next. Me. Everybody follow along. Just because I'm reading does not mean that you get to zone out. You need to start recognizing when you zone out so that I don't have to call you out on it. And I asked some of the other teachers if that was okay, if they thought that was okay, and they said, I do that all the time. I can't believe you don't, including first grade teachers. So, make sure that you're focusing so I don't have to call your name. Coasts to countryside. The Northeast is the smallest region in the United States in terms of size. Yet the area is made up of a variety of different physical features. So what that's saying is, even though it's very small, there's lots of different physical features like mountains, hills, plains, things like that. A varied landscape. What does the word varied mean? Who knows what the word varied means? Kingston? Confidence? Not small. What does varied mean? Victoria?
I think big and rocky like mountains.
Not big. Because we know, is the Northeast big? So would they use a word that means big to describe it? But we do know it's made up of a variety of different physical features. So what do you think a varied landscape is? Smith?
A lot of different physical features.
Very good. Varied means a lot of options or a lot of different things. So if you have a varied choice of desserts, it means there's lots of different desserts for you to choose from. A variety. Do you see how varied and variety have the same base word? I'm going to call people out for looking at the clock because that means they're not focusing. They're thinking, when is this over? Okay, so varied and variety have the same base word, vary, V-A-R-Y, which means things change, they're different. Girls, make sure that you're focusing. Okay, follow along. The Atlantic Ocean forms the eastern border of the Northeast region. This is the eastern border of the Northeast region. Oh, I forgot I had my map. I could have, whatever. We'll figure that out. We'll do that later. The northern coast of the region is rocky and jagged. That's like that coast of Maine that we've been hearing about and talking about. It also has many harbors. A harbor is a protected area of water where ships can dock safely. Oh, man. I have to erase mine. Well, that's okay, because we're not going to get through much today, so I can post it for tomorrow. Okay, so first word. Oh, I'm sorry, we have to have the title. The title of these notes are chapter, this is chapter 4.
Yes.
Yep, chapter 4, lesson 1, which is titled Geography of the Northeast. And then, of course, we have today's date, February 1st, 2021. And number 1 is the word harbor. Harbor. Remember, if you can't see up here, you do have these in your book. And a harbor is a protected area of water where ships can dock safely. So we see a picture of a harbor down at the bottom. When you're done writing, you can look at that picture at the bottom. It says, fishing boats and pleasure boats line one of the many harbors in the Northeast. Remember, it's in your book if you can't see it. These definitions are in your book if you cannot see them. Mason, remember, this definition is in your book if you can't see it. So you don't have to struggle to see this one. You can look at the one in your book. We see it at the bottom. Now, do you think harbors are really important for keeping boats safe now? What do you think back when the Northeast first started, what did the boats have to be safe from? Victoria.
Big winds and
Storms, okay. Well, they still need protection from that, right? So we still need harbors for that, but what else do you think they were there to protect themselves from? Kingston?
Okay, this might seem hard, but like getting bombed by another ship that's an enemy ship.
Okay, so like maybe pirates? Maybe think about the Revolutionary War, maybe the British. So back when the United States was first discovered or first started, harbors were not only important for protecting ships against the weather, they were also important for protecting the ships against enemy ships. Because if you're in this protected area, you could have boats that kind of patrol where the harbor starts out to keep the enemies from getting in and hitting all of your boats. Do they need harbors for that anymore? Not really. But do we still need harbors to protect boats from the weather? Yeah, sometimes. Yes, quickly.
There's a lot of them over by my cabin.
Yeah, those are more like marinas, but yeah, they're kind of harbors.
Well,
A little.
They're also like this and marinas.
And coves, but harbors are usually really big. So it might be more like a little cove, which is kind of a small version of a harbor, except there's not necessarily a place for like boats to dock there, but it's kind of a small version of a harbor. So kind of. Okay, let's keep reading. Farther south, the flat coastal plain hugs the coast all the way to Delaware Bay. So that means the further we go south, even in the Northeast, the further away the ocean is from the Appalachian Mountains, right? So as we go, can you kind of see the leftover? I wish that I had my map up. Usually I'd be over there with the big map, but I can't bring them easily. So as we go down the coast, the end of the land gets further and further and further away from the Appalachian Mountains. So the coastal plain gets bigger and bigger. So in like Delaware and New Jersey, they have beaches more like what we think of because they're not very close to the mountains. They're like 50, 60, 100 miles from the mountains. But Maine is like right there. So as we go south, the mountains and the coast split, creating a larger coastal plain.
You can redraw it.
I know, but we're only going to get through a little bit more today, like probably this page, which, of course, is the good one. Oh, well, whatever. Okay, Cullen, please read next. Everybody, even though it's not your turn to read, what do you need to be making sure you're doing? Do it, don't tell me. Show me, don't tell me.
Inland from the coast, green valleys and rolling hills spread across the land. Farther west, the Appalachian Mountains cut through the regions. Beyond the mountain valleys, two of the Great Lakes separate the northeastern regions from Canada.
I am going to pull up my map really quick.
Music.
Okay. So, I know it's not the greatest, but just do your best. Here we have the Northeast region. This is just that map in our classroom, but I zoomed it in. So here we have the Northeast region, from Pennsylvania and Delaware on up. And so Cullen just read to us about how we have the Atlantic coast, and then we have up here, it's very rocky. I read that to you. It's very rocky up here because the Appalachian Mountains run diagonally through the Northeast. And up here, they kind of meet the ocean. But then, Mason, you've zoned out. Kingston, you've zoned out. Yes, Smith.
It looks like dogs, like real dogs.
That's weird.
I don't even see a little map on it. It just looks like dogs.
It's not, okay, just do your best. Just do your best. So, the Appalachian Mountains run diagonally like this. But then, as you go south, the further the ocean is from the mountains. we go south, Cullen read to us that we have very green valleys. What else? Green valleys and hills. There are green valleys, so you know those are the places between two mountains, and hills. Then, if you go past the Appalachian Mountains, you have the Great Lakes, which we learned about. We have Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. Would we consider Lake Huron part of the Northeast? No. Just Lake Erie and Lake Ontario because they border northeastern states. Lake Erie also borders Ohio, which is not a northeastern state, but it does border Pennsylvania and New York, which are. So do you see what Cullen's talking about now? You have the green valleys and hills, the Appalachian Mountains, and then the Great Lakes. Okay. Carla, read next. Everybody follow along.
Scapping in
Shaping.
the northeast.
Shaping. Scapping's not a word, so that should tell you that doesn't make sense. Let me go back and try again. It's shaping.
Shaping in the northeast.
Don't add words. There's no in. So Carla, go slow. You're letting your brain move faster than your eyes.
Shaping the northeast.
Good.
Glaciers shaped many of physical features of the northeast. A glacier is a huge, slow-moving mass of ice.
Okay, so what's our next word, Carla?
Glacier.
Glacier. Glacier. Remember, if you can't see up here, it's in your book, so you don't have to struggle to read this because it's in your book. I'm not going to slow down for you to struggle to read this if it's written exactly the same way in your book. Carla, what is a glacier?
A glacier is a huge, slow-moving mass of ice.
A huge, slow-moving mass of ice. So when we think of glaciers, we think of where? Where do we think of glaciers being? Victoria? Antarctica. And huge. We think of them as being massive mountains made out of ice. Like, think of the movie Elf. Didn't we watch Elf? Remember, as he's leaving, he gets on the ice and it's going to break off, but behind him you see those big mountains of ice. So we think of glaciers as being like near the North Pole and down in Antarctica. But they weren't. Why would we be talking about glaciers and the Northeast? There's no glaciers in the Northeast. There's no big, huge mountains of ice in the Northeast. Carla, keep reading to tell us why we're talking about glaciers and the northeastern United States.
During an ice age, long ago, glaciers covered more of Earth than today. As glaciers move across parts of the northeast, they erode
They eroded.
and roll down or down levels. Sometimes the glaciers carve deep basins into the lands.
So, why are we talking about glaciers in the Northeast? Why are we talking about glaciers in the Northeast? Kingston?
The Ice Age had a lot of glaciers in the Northeast.
So because during the Ice Age, there were a lot of glaciers in the Northeast. Are they still there today? No. What did they do, though? What did they cause that we can still see today? Victoria?
The glaciers carved.
Loudly.
The glaciers carved deep basins
So they caused all these big grooves, these big bowls. What do you think those might be now? Do we just go to the Northeast and see these giant, like, dents in the ground? What do you think they might be now without reading ahead? Zari?
Maybe like pools of water, just water.
Let's find out. Good thought. Let's find out. Kingston, read next, loud and slow. You're not ready. I don't understand why you're not ready. Zadie, read next.
In time, the glaciers melted and some of the basins filled with water.
Was Zari correct? She was. Okay, keep going.
Many lakes in the Northeast formed in this way thousands of years ago.
Very good. Okay, that was short. You can keep going.
Glaciers also had other effects on the region. And in the northern coastal areas, they scraped away the topsoil or the fertile upper layers of soil. This scraping left behind mostly poor rocky soil.
So what were two effects of glaciers on the Northeast? What were two effects of glaciers on the Northeast? Mason, tell me one.
It left behind rocky soil.
They scraped across the ground, leaving rocky soil. What does that mean? If a place has very rocky, poor soil, what does that mean? Mason?
They can't grow many crops.
They can't grow many crops. So do you think that the Northeast is a major farming region? No. The soil's not good. It's poor and it's rocky. So we can't really grow many things there. So even without it saying anything about growing crops, we already know what are we not going to find as a natural resource of the Northeast? What are we not going to find as a natural resource? Zadie?
A bunch of food.
Food, fruits and vegetables, wheat, corn, whatever. Okay, what was another effect of glaciers on the Northeast? Zari?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Glaciers had in the northern coastal areas, they scratched away the topsoil.
Well, that's what Mason told us. So what's another thing that glaciers did in the Northeast?
Or the fertile upper layers of soil.
That's what Mason told us. Mason told us about what the glaciers did to the soil. But what was another thing that the glaciers did? You all have this. You are all able to answer this question. This is what I'm talking about. Victoria?
They eroded or wore down landforms.
They wore down landforms. Oh, so there's actually three effects. Sorry, because I forgot about that one. So they eroded landforms. So that means any mountains or plateaus were then kind of worn down so they were more smooth, not like pointy. So they also scraped away the fertile topsoil, leaving poor rocky soil behind. We're not going to pack up till I hear that third thing that they did. What was the third effect? Zadie?
The glaciers melted and some of the basins filled with water.
So first, the glaciers caused those basins. They carved deep basins and then they melted, filling those basins with water. So now we have what because of glaciers?
The lake.
The lakes in the Northeast. Okay. Did Zadie and Victoria and Mason, were they the only ones with those answers in their book? Were they the only ones that were able to find those answers? But you had to choose to go back and do more than just pretend to read it. You had to go back and actually read it. And then you had to think, did somebody say this yet? Was I listening when Mason or Victoria answered? If I wasn't listening when Mason or Victoria answered, then I may say the same thing that one of them said. But if I was listening, make sure that you're still listening now. Even if I'm saying that you did a good thing, that doesn't mean, oh, I don't have to listen to this. Yes, you still do. So if you were listening when Mason or Victoria answered, and you also use your tools by going back in your book and actually read, not pretend to read, you would know, okay, I see this. This is something the glaciers caused. Let me think of Mason's answer. He talked about the soil. Let me think of Victoria's answer. She talked about the landforms. Well, nobody's talked about the lakes, so I guess I'll answer. I'll talk about the lakes. That's why you have to listen to each other. This class does not listen to each other. I know that because a lot of you either have no idea what comes next when I ask a question, or you say the same thing that somebody already said. Both of those things show me that you're tuning out when other people answer. Okay, let's see. I'm not going to give you your homework yet. I'll give you your homework tomorrow. So girls at home, don't worry about that. Just leave it in your folder or whatever, wherever you keep your stuff for tomorrow. Okay, go ahead and close your social studies book. Leave your vocab